1 second. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Robinson?
Here.
Ms. Bacchus?
Here.
Mr. Pearson? Mr. France?
Here.
Mr. Bryant?
Here.
Ms. Wilhelmie?
Yes, ma'am, here.
Mr. Fouché?
Here.
Mr. Powell?
Here.
Mr. Coleman?
Present.
Mr. Lewis?
Here.
Mr. Wembley?
Here.
All in attendance, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, committee members, for making the effort to all be here. Can we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Ms. Kesey, can you present your remarks? To the general audience, Mr. Todd unfortunately had to pull out. May be present at the 1:30 meeting, but he is no longer on the agenda for this morning. 3 minutes. There we go.
My name is Gayla Kesey. I am co-chair of the League of Women Voters of the CSRA. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. With the committee's vote on the form of government now complete, this process is entering a new phase, defining roles, responsibilities, and the balance of power within that structure. That work must be grounded in accountability, transparency, consistency, and public trust. However, the League of Women Voters has continued to observe procedural inconsistencies that undermine those principles. The motions on today's agenda, for example, including those on the city manager's hiring and termination, budget adoption, and future charter review timelines, were not formally advanced from the October 16 work session or any prior subcommittee meeting. According to the committee's own rules of procedure, sections 3.01 and 4.0, motions must first be moved, seconded, and properly debated before the full committee can take official action. While members may technically move and second these motions today, doing so without prior subcommittee recommendation or public review undermines both the intent of your adopted procedures and the transparency those rules are meant to protect. Proceeding to vote on these motions today would be inconsistent with those adopted rules and would further erode public confidence in this review process. At the same time, there remains no published sequence or framework for discussion, no way for the public to follow which portions of the charter are under review and how new items fit into that process. Without an established sequence, the public cannot clearly track what is being discussed or how decisions are progressing. The Carl Vinson Institute's scope of work includes providing guidance and structure, yet the absence of a visible roadmap continues to cause confusion. New, quote, proposed language documents have appeared on the city's website without dates, explanation, or consultant attribution. And we have voted to have meeting dates changed, and those have not been updated on the site yet. This lack of structure has also led to a continuing blurring of lines between what belongs in the charter, what belongs in ordinance, and what is governed by state law. When these distinctions are not respected, public confidence and ethical integrity are both compromised. The League urges the committee to correct course by publishing all draft and consultant documents with dates and context, by adopting and following a clear framework and sequence of discussion, and by grounding each step in transparent, accessible process. The League has already provided a suggested sequence that could serve as a practical roadmap. Establishing that structure would not only bring order to this review, it would restore the public's trust that this committee's work is being conducted openly, fairly, and within its proper scope. And I have provided a review of today's motions and their alignment with prior discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kesey. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Robinson.
So just to clarify, I know I'm looking at what you sent here. Motion B, we have discussed before. It's been a while, but it has been discussed. The only item in this list that hadn't formally been talked about was motion D. While I do understand exactly where you're coming from and some of the inconsistencies, and while it's notable that the League of Women Voters is wanting to provide information and assistance there, we have hired a consultant firm to assist with that. So as much as you guys want to help, any of that help should probably go to them first, to be honest. And that's mostly just because they are the ones who are tasked with this process. The appearance of these items on our agenda aren't necessarily the guidance that we are voting on them today, so much as we are discussing them. So that has been what has happened so far since we've had this for the most part. Items will appear on the agenda several times before we vote on them. So I want to clarify that at least, because it is not designed that these things have been discussed and we will immediately, boom, vote on them today, so much as they're here for discussion so that we can draft formal motions and language as we go through this process.
So my understanding is that the subcommittee and the working sessions are where that discussion is to occur, and then they are formally come out of the subcommittee or the working session and with a recommendation or without a recommendation, and that happened at the form of government meeting on the motions 2 meetings ago, I think. They came out of subcommittee without recommendation, and then they were discussed or not discussed, or there were alternative motions placed here. But my understanding is the purpose of a working session is that's where you hash out this and that you ask for Carl Vinson to provide you information or model language. And the October 16th, in fact, that meeting went really well. That was a very good discussion. And my understanding was that Carl Vinson Institute was supposed to provide some model language.
And they did.
And I don't see that. And that was the reason I was looking on the website for that model language, and I got something generic for both of them. So that means the public is not able to provide feedback, not able to follow the process. And that's what I'm talking about. Y'all need to decide when you're discussing things, is it going to be in your full meeting or is it going to be in your work session? And they need to follow a flow. And you have processes and procedures that are already outlined. And if you follow them, because I addressed them, so if you follow them, then it's good. That's what the public is looking at, that you follow them, and that they are looking at those processes and procedures to know what y'all are doing and how y'all are doing it. And that's what builds public trust, is that there. And with regard to the consultant, I have come before the board, before the commission, and I have said that I'm not sure, and I have concerns about Carl Vinson Institute and their scope of work and whether that is being followed and all of that. So I've already addressed that to the commission because the commission is the one paying their job, paying for their contract. And the other thing is if you are only going to get Carl Vinson Institute's information, that means you're negating any public comment, any public, just not the league, but any of the speakers that come in. And my understanding is that we heard from Mr. Doss, and at the meeting after this at 1:30, you're going to talk about his recommendations. So the league is not out of line in providing suggestions.
You were.
No, but I'm saying that if we are able to provide suggestions and we can do additional work, and we can do additional education, and that's what our job is.
Thank you for your input, and I need to coordinate with you today because I think we're missing several of the pieces you've circulated to this body that should be on the website. So
Okay.
we'll put that on the list today.
Thank
All right, Ms. Sheffy, no? Okay. Is it Ms. Backus?
I just wanted to thank you for bringing this forward because that is a concern that I have and that I've shared with the rest of the committee. By putting these motions on here before we've discussed them as a committee, not talking about what was discussed at a town hall meeting that was not sanctioned and half of our committee members were there at, or conversations we had on the side, but as a committee. And when we agreed to this schedule to have the committee meetings in the morning and the workshop in the afternoon, we agreed to it for the purpose of discussing these issues, and then the following meeting, they would go on the agendas as motions. I will say, I think we were all in agreement about the first one when it was discussed at the workshop. So I do feel like that's appropriate for us to move that forward as a motion. But we haven't discussed how many votes it would take to hire and fire a city manager. We haven't discussed or even asked Carl Vinson if we need to state in the charter that there's a deputy manager, and we haven't discussed whether or not that's a good idea for them to step in as interim. We haven't had that conversation, and so I do agree with you on that. It does completely blocks out public input.
Yeah, what I've done is I've gone through and I have transcripts of all the subcommittee meetings, and I have the transcripts of these. And that's what I went through to see, to verify that my understanding was that you had not discussed these things. And that's why I put these down.
Mr. Plunkett?
One issue that Ms. Robinson mentioned was to have either the League of Women Voters or anyone else to send information to the Carl Vinson Institute. It would be preferred that it would either go to the chair or through Ms. Bonner to distribute. It's probably a little, I don't want to say inappropriate, but maybe that's the right word, to have them directly contacting them. But I understand and appreciate your thought. If you have ideas, please bring them in advance, and that would be the way to go through the chair, not directly. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Plunkett. Thank you, Ms. Kesey. Let us move on to old business. Ms. Bonner, would you like to address this? It's probably better than I could do it.
No, I'm sorry, we had this morning.
Okay, what is the pleasure of this body? Do we want to recess for 5 minutes so Ms. Bonner is able to get the minutes and bring them back, or what's your pleasure? Mr. Wimberly?
I move that we recess for the necessary time she need in order to get them printed and back.
Moved and second by affirmation. Everybody's okay with that?
Okay.
Let's do that. Here is going to be the game plan. Because one of the motions has some issues that we will resolve in new business, or at least introduce the concepts to be addressed at some future point, Ms. Bonner has asked that we go ahead and reconvene the meeting, that we will, in advance of our 1:30 meeting, reconvene briefly in this body, is that right? In this room, so that she can hand out the minutes, because there's some transcription questions that are being straightened out. We'll meet back here at 1:25. When we wrap it all up, we'll head upstairs to our workshop space and continue on from there. All right? Let's continue on with the agenda, and I think we are at the point where Mr. Plunkett and Ms. Brill, can you give us an update on where we are with the ethics and transparency edits? And okay, so Lori is pointing to Jim, so.
So, Madam Chair, the last thing we did is that we took Ms. Robinson's documentation, I think I may have given y'all this report, and put it into a bit of a form that would be somewhat appropriate with a charter. And there were some issues, and I think I shared with Ms. Robinson privately, that a lot of the issues were having the ethics panel be able to make some definitive rulings, and such as, what was appropriate, I hate to use the word punishment, but we'll go with punishment for failure. We can't, under state law, direct a appointed body to be able to sanction that. It has to be an elected person in that regard. And so what we did is I kind of made that edit, and then took several of the provisions that she had suggested and put those into kind of what it might be an ordinance, because there's some things that would do that. Ms. Brill and I talked about it, and what I did not fully appreciate, but she, in her report, or the final report that y'all were going to, presumably adopt, is that we would have a shortened ethics section, and then in her notes to it, things that the body felt were appropriate for inclusion in ordinances and things of that nature. So that is the last of my involvement. Ms. Brill, I believe, was going to do some editing of my edits, and I was out of town for anniversary trip, and so I have not done any more work on that. But it is something that is obviously important to this body, and something that we are ultimately trying to resolve and bring you back a bit more streamlined, but understanding that the comments that were made would be part of the final report for guidance in what should be ordinance issues. So I've probably given you the same report I previously did, but be quite honest with you, I've just not been here to be able to do that.
All right, Ms. Robinson.
So can we make it a point to have recommended language, whether it be for charter or ordinance, by the next meeting, so that we can we need it before the next meeting, so that we can actually vote on this and close this chapter and move forward?
Yes, we can certainly have charter language, sure. The ordinance language would be up to your attorney.
Okay.
But we can draft it.
So are you saying it hadn't been drafted previous?
We had looked at it. I don't know if it was something with email, but I haven't received back, I think, some of the things I needed. So if Mr. Plunkett could resend it, then I can. I mean, it's easy. I had drafted some language, but I need to put it with his information. So
Short answers, we'll get you something for next meeting.
Thank you.
Can we request that we get it maybe next Wednesday, because our agendas are prepared one entire week before the meeting actually occurs, and that helps us more accurately do agendas. Even if it's quick and dirty, you can make changes afterwards. We have to have some understanding of where it's going so that we can plan.
I will do my best.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, very
think
good.
that Chief
Ms.
will-
Burrell, can I ask one more thing, or you or Rex? I think for the benefit of the body, can you please describe the documents that are going to be prepared at the end of the rainbow? The charter document itself, the report, and then there was a third one. The second one, for all practical purposes, was an addendum of sorts.
Oh, so usually what we do with the reports is an actual report that will include the process. It also includes things that you brought up that maybe you did not include in the charter, but you thought it was important for people to know about. Any research that we've done. A lot of times in the addendums, we might, at the end, ask you for individual comments about the process so that we can include that. We also will embed the, both the new charter, and a lot of times we will, depending on, we struck through a lot of your old charter, so it's almost like we're starting new. So I'm not sure if we'll have that in the report or not at this point. Is there anything more you can think of?
I would just say we also typically, when sharing the charter, we have a red line version of the charter, which
That's what I was
shows,
talking about, the strike through, but with yours, so much of it was struck through because of the way it was written, and it wasn't organized properly, that it might, we might just put the new charter. We can put the strike through in there if you want. You just let us know, it's up to you. We have no problems doing that.
yeah, previously we would provide two versions, the strike-through version, and then also just the version with all of those edits already made and included. So two different versions, same information.
And then in the addendums, we have the comments. We have, a lot of times if there's, if the public comments were transcribed, we might include the public comments as well. So, you know, certainly maybe some of Dr. Kesey's or Mr. Moses, if they were printed out.
Yeah, any research provided would be in the
Yeah.
appendices as well.
Yeah. Does that answer your question? Does anybody else have any more questions about the report? It's
Ms.
a length-
Robinson?
It's a lengthy report. It's 10 pages, put it that way.
So my question isn't necessarily about the report. The issue I have at this point is that many times things have been requested and we have been told that they would be at a next meeting, and that meeting comes and goes, and we end up getting this information a month later, which is of course delaying the process because we're unable to do what we need to do on our end and inform the public if we're requesting things from Carl Vinson and not getting them. And if there's something you need to say, okay, to finish this, we need this information, I'm not getting these emails that you're needing anything. I know you guys are having conversations with our chair and our vice chair. The body isn't necessarily privy to what is discussed in those conversations. So if there are things you're waiting on, where is that information being communicated? And is there a timeline or some document, some project management system we can see to know when you are working on things and when we can get turnaround? Because as of now, the turnaround time for Carl Vinson to provide us with certain things is not consistent, and it is not doing this body any service going forward if we're constantly waiting on things months later.
Yeah, I think I would respond twofold. One, each Monday following the Charter Committee meeting, we have a follow-up meeting with the chair and vice chair, and that's where we review the issues that have come up, and we clarify if it was something that was requested to make sure that that is what is desired. And so it's at that meeting that we essentially take our marching orders on what we're going to work on for the following 2 weeks. And I hope that we have followed up with the things that have been requested by the chair and vice chair. And if those haven't been communicated to the committee, I think that's an issue for us to work through with the chair, because our assumption is that the chair is communicating that process back to the committee. And we are not privy to all of the emails going back and forth. So if it's not, that's an issue that I think we need to make sure it is happening more clearly.
Sure, that piece is understood. I guess my concern is more around the turnaround times and things of that nature, because it's been very trying for the community to follow. If the expectation is for us to discuss something at the next meeting, we get to that meeting and we can't discuss it because we don't have all the information from you. So what I'm trying to better understand is, where is the disconnect and how do we fix it? Because we had some slow momentum, then we had some good momentum. Now we're slowing back down and about to go into the holiday season, which is going to slow things down even more. We have a public duty to the people to make sure we're diligent. So I want to understand where the disconnect is so we can fix it and move forward.
So I will say that specifically on the ethics issue, which is, I think, probably the issue that has been outstanding the longest, that has been a communication issue back and forth with council. And I think there have been a couple of issues. One, Jim alluded to, having been out of town for a couple of weeks, that exacerbated that. And I think it simply dropped off our radar.
Okay.
And so other than that, I don't have a good answer to why that one has languished.
Okay.
Ms. Backus?
I just want to clarify something that you said. I'm not sure if it was intended that way or not, so I'm just asking for clarification. During a meeting, if we request information from Carl Vinson Institute, you guys do nothing with that request until the chair and the vice chair have essentially co-signed on that request?
We ensure that we have understood that request with the chair and co-chair, yes.
So it is appropriate for members to request information during meetings from you guys, or do we need to?
So anytime information is requested in a meeting, our practice is to go back to the chair to make sure that we have understood that request, so that we accurately capture it and are able to get it back to the committee, yes.
Okay, so the way it's been done is correct. I just wanted to make sure, because if it needs to be done a different way, I just wanted to make sure I was doing it correctly.
Yeah, no. So, for example, when you have requested something, we then take note of that, take it back to the chair, say this was requested. Our intent is to get X, Y, and Z and bring it back to the committee. And here's the schedule in which we anticipate getting it back.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Robinson?
I guess the thing that makes that confusing is, if one of us made a request for a particular reason, instead of communicating back with the person who asked to clarify that request, it's going through the chair and the vice chair. Now, I'm not saying that's not proper procedure, because that is. However, the thought process that went into the request isn't necessarily belonging to the chair and the vice chair. So for me, that's a disconnect in just information. And it doesn't mean that the person needs to be in that meeting so much as maybe if the communication is being requested, to include the person in the email at least. Hey, here are some things we want clarification on. Because Attorney Plunkett and I did talk about the provisions that he discussed, and I provided in that conversation, hey, in this particular edit, I changed it to this information and I sent it to him. And then, of course, like you said, there's just been some communication issues there. Not a problem, I get it. But going to the person who asked for it for clarity seems to make more sense, to get the actual clarity so that we can have the questions answered, versus going through the vice chair and chair to say, well, this is what was requested, do I do it or not? So it's just not making sense to me, and I guess that's probably because we don't have a clearly defined plan of how this is supposed to go. What sections are we doing each time? What are we navigating each time? So we're just out here flying by the seat of our pants at $500,000 for your services. So I'm trying to be a good steward of our taxpayer money to make sure we're providing you what you need so you can activate. But if you're not getting it for whatever reason, because there's a communication breakdown, we need to fix it and we need to fix it today.
So we'll agree that by Wednesday, we will have something, even if it's not pretty, for the two of us to review, and then we will just copy the world on it going back?
Yeah, I think that addresses the ethics issue, but I think the other issue that Ms. Robinson
Other requests.
is raising is kind of, and we have provided kind of roadmap guidance, if you will, to the chair over time. But I don't think that what I'm hearing is that roadmap guidance is not making it down the road.
And that could be.
To other folks. And I think that's part of what is being requested, and we're happy to work with the chair to
So we can take
clarify
that
that.
up on this afternoon's meeting, but at the moment, the three pieces we've been working on have been form of government, finance, which we have a long ways to go on yet. Public speaker came, Travis Doss came, that's elections, that was information, but the three active pieces right now are form of government, finance, ethics. Ethics was put on the table September 4th, and it will be back on. Yes, ma'am.
So do you have a document you're working off of?
Just the one that was submitted September 4th.
No. I mean a document of how this process is going to go. So we have no actual roadmap that we're working from.
So that's the purpose of the Georgia Municipal Association. They clearly define the component modules. And it
But
follows,
component modules aren't a roadmap.
No, but they are organized by what has to be decided first, and it's kind of logically organized in terms of how the decision tree should go.
Okay, great. So have we made a document that takes that information and provided a roadmap for this body to use?
No, one does not exist that I'm aware of.
Okay, can we create that, please?
So we'll work on that this afternoon, too?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good input. All right. Any other questions, or can we move on to new business? All right. First motion.
Madam Chair, I want to make sure I put this in context. I would like to make a motion about the Charter Review Committee review after so many years. But after making that motion, I would hope I'd get a second, and then we could discuss it. But then after that, I would make a motion that we postpone the vote so everyone would have an opportunity to review it to our next meeting. Mr. Legal, does that, Jim, does that?
That is correct. In order to have discussion, we need to have a motion and a second.
Okay.
And then at the conclusion of that discussion, if you would like, you can make a motion to postpone to a time certain. That, as a motion, requires a second as well and a vote. And if that was the case, and y'all postpone it to the next regular meeting, then it would go, the secretary would work with the clerk to have that item on that agenda. But since it appears here, you certainly can debate it on this agenda.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Plunkett. Based on that, Madam Chair, I would make a motion that the city shall convene a charter review committee 7 years after this charter takes effect to evaluate and adjust the charter as needed.
Is there a second? Okay, Ms. Backus seconds. All right, discussion. We've got, who's in District 5? That's you. Oh, Ms. Robinson was, I think.
I
Okay.
would like to make a substitute motion
Okay,
that the city shall convene a charter review every 7 years to evaluate and adjust the charter as needed.
all right. Is there a second? Not being a second. I'm sorry.
I'll second that. I do think that every 7, it makes it a little bit more clear.
All right. So it's Sheffy and Angela on the substitute motion, which inserts the word every for every 7 years. All right, any discussion? Mr. Coach, no?
Yes, my discussion item would simply be that after the first review of 7 years, if they are determined then that a review should be offered 10 years or 5 years or whatever it may be, it would give that committee an opportunity to make that recommendation. I like 7 years, and I don't have any problem with Mr. Robinson's motion for every 7 years, but does every 7 years mandate that we do it versus the committee, the review committee itself, determining when or how long that next meeting should occur? And I appreciate anyone's input on that part of it.
Okay. Ms. Backus. No, wait, Ms. Robinson was next, I think. Okay.
Yeah, so if we put it in there that they do it the next 7 years and they decide to make a change, then that means the charter would need to be changed. Versus if you have it every 7, you just have them go through the session. If they determine nothing needs to be changed, then nothing needs to be changed. Putting that preemptively eliminates having to change the charter later versus if we just say, we'll have another one in 7 years, because just having another one in 7 years, we can't actually put that in the charter. That's just more discussion.
Okay, Ms. Backus?
I do have a question for clarity because I don't think actually either of the motions address it. When does the 7 years begin? Does it begin from the point that we started or when we finish?
I think Clint's motion said from when it takes effect. Is that correct?
Well, when it takes effect would depend upon when it goes to the
For
voters.
the process.
Takes effect, and what I meant
We have to
then,
decide when it's going to take effect in the
Yeah.
charter, so that's one of the things we're talking about this afternoon.
and I think once the legislator get through and put it through and it goes through a vote, and once that has become law, if you will, then it would be 7 years after that, is what I'm thinking. So that was my context.
Okay. We have 2 motions on the floor. Have we agreed to push them off until the 13th, the next meeting?
Not yet.
Okay. What is the pleasure, Mr. Plunkett?
Madam Chair, one of the things that I was thinking exactly what Ms. Backus was saying is when does the 7 years start? I think that when you bring this up, whenever this is actually voted on, you probably would say from any type of referendum vote or the conclusion of your report. We don't want to presume that there will be changes in 7 years or in 14 years or 21 years from now. You may end up saying that it's all good. So I think you would want to be clarifying that it was 7 years from your completion of your report or review, or the latter of those two. And we can help nuance that when the final motion is done, but just thinking that out, don't always presume there'll be a change.
Ms. Brill.
Ms. Brill?
A good way to do that would be, say, 7 years from the effective date, you could say, of the change. Not all changes are going to have to go to the legislature. If it's a home rule change, it does not have, because going forward, you're not going to look at the whole thing. You might not be changing things that have to go in front of the legislature. So you can just change them under home rule. So if that's the case, you can just say from the effective date of, not to change, I'll have to wordsmith it, but that's how you would do it.
So, go ahead, Angela.
Does that make sense to you?
It does make sense.
Okay.
But what if the next committee decides that there's no changes that need to be made? Then it might make more sense to go with what Mr. Plunkett said about the completion of the report.
Right, and we can say both. We can either say the effective date of the change, or if no change is made from the conclusion of the committee.
Okay.
Committee members, shall we ask Carl Vinson to bring us language in both scenarios to the next meeting? Is that what we should do? All right, can we request that? Okay. 2 weeks. Okay, Ms. Robinson?
Are we still under the mindset to hold off on voting? Or do y'all want to vote?
Go ahead, Clint.
I'm ready to vote on the second motion, but I would think that we would come back with language from Carl Vinson and take a vote maybe at the next meeting. Is that okay, legal, that we do? Or do we have to vote on what's on the floor now?
If I may, I think the intent of the motion is to postpone to the next meeting, along with the receiving of information from the Carl Vinson Institute as to appropriate language for this item. I think that's the intent of your motion, and if that's the case, then you would move that, and then we'd have a second and a vote on that.
Okay. I so moved that we move this to our next meeting.
I second.
Madam Chair, and our clerk just said that you have a substitute motion on the floor that has been seconded, so we'll have to deal with that, although, because, actually, no, you can. The clerk was asking if you could modify your motion just to bring it back at the next meeting with language.
Okay. Got it.
Every 7 years.
Okay, I motion that we hold off on voting on the substitute motion until our previous meeting after we have received information from Carl Vinson.
That works?
Second.
We need a vote on that. All in favor, cast your votes. Yeah, are you clear on what the motion is, everybody? Repeat it real quick. So, Ms. Robinson has made a substitute motion to consider the charter review. Ms. Robinson has made a motion to convene the charter review committee every 7 years, and that she recommends we push it off voting until the next meeting. We're voting on voting. All right, all in favor? Cast your votes, please. Cast your votes, period. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair.
I vote yes.
And Mr. Pearson.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you,
It's
ma'am.
unanimous.
Thank you, ma'am. Next motion?
Item B is the mayor shall present up to 3 candidates for manager to be hired with endorsement of 6 or more commission votes.
Is there a second?
Well, I need to know who's making it.
Who's making the motion?
I'm making the motion.
Okay.
You, Mr. Pierce.
Pearson, who's making the second?
Second.
And Ms. Robinson second. Okay.
Thank you. All right, discussion. Mr. Wimberly.
I might be a little slow right here, but I thought we just discussed that we was going to take these motion up in a discussion since we never discussed them before.
We are discussing.
So this is consider your discussion and we just vote on them?
What, we can defer them to the next meeting if you choose. Go ahead.
Mr. Wimberly, in order to have discussion at this body, we have to have a motion and a second. And this may take the same posture as the prior motion, is that you can discuss it, and then it can be a motion to postpone the vote to the next meeting. Similar to what we did what you tried to do a couple of months ago, I think, with some motions. So the idea is that you can discuss this and postpone it till later to actually have the vote.
Madam Chair, may I address the attorney there? So am I voting to put this in for discussion? Am I voting to approve this?
There's no vote currently being taken. So what's happened is there was a motion and a second, which allows the body to discuss. That right now we're just in a discussion mode. And I would assume that there will be a motion to postpone to the following meeting, and that way it would appear on the next meeting for the actual vote.
Okay, and that'll be fine too. Mr. Wimberly, did you want to comment on that?
Well, I understood all that was said, but I'm not understanding it to be on this document right here, what's called an agenda.
What is confusing? What are you referring
Because I
to?
only see the word motion.
Well, it's just a motion to put it in play. We can offer substitute motions. It's taking a cue from you. You taught me, put it in place so we can talk about it, and that's all it is.
Thank you.
And then you got a motion.
Pardon me, Ms. Bonner first.
And then you could have created.
Did you want to speak? All right. Did you have something you wanted to add, Lena? Because I got you here.
No.
Okay, very good. Ms. Backus?
I believe prior to you bringing up this motion, or this motion being brought up, Coach Bryant had indicated that he intended to make a motion to postpone the rest of these motions for discussion for the workshop this afternoon. That's what I understood.
No, I said postpone it till the next meeting of this body, is what I thought I said.
For voting, but
Yeah.
so that we can discuss it this afternoon. So can we address his motion first, since that was brought up before motion B?
I'm confused, Angela.
When he began discussing motion A, he said it was his intent to discuss that, and then he felt like we needed to postpone the rest of these for a vote until the next meeting. That's what,
Madam Chair,
Mr. France?
well, I'm glad she brought it up because I think there's been a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to speak for Mr. Bryant, but I thought it was clear he was only talking about motion A, that he wanted to defer voting. I didn't know he was, I'm not going to speak for Coach.
Yeah, well, I made a motion about the review every 7 years, and then there was a substitute motion that it would be every 7 years. And I think what we said is that we voted after getting to postpone the vote until the next meeting. But I was talking about the meeting of this body, where that formal motion would be addressed. Okay, is that not clear?
That statement was as to statement A, but I think what Ms. Backus was saying was your intent to do the same with B. Did you want to discuss them at this meeting, or did you want to discuss them this afternoon and vote the following week? I think it's the question is the timing of the discussion, if I'm not mistaken, is the issue on the floor.
A number of these motions have been discussed, have not reached resolution, which is why they're on this agenda today. My strong preference as chair would be to go through, have a discussion. If it's the will of this body to defer it to next meeting, let's do so. If it's the will of this body to vote, we vote. Does anybody have a problem with that?
oh yeah.
Okay, we're considering a second motion. And we have Ms. Backus is next.
I do have an issue with that. I've shared it with our committee already. I believe that the following motions we did not discuss in any of our committee meetings. It may have been discussed at a town hall meeting or in private conversations, but that does not equate to our committee having a conversation about that. Voting on those motions also restricts any community participation. If we vote on them today, they have no voice in any of these because they did not get to see these motions until after the deadline to sign up for today. So I would suggest that motions B, C, D, and E be pushed out for vote until next meeting.
Is that a substitute motion?
Sure.
Is there a second? There being none, that fails.
I'm just gonna.
Let's discuss. Mr. France. Wait, pardon me, Coach is first.
As each motion is listed, we have to discuss
Mr.
and
France?
postpone each one individually on the agenda.
Madam Chair, my concern was already answered. I thought we were specifically talking about motion A and motion A only that we voted on already. So I'm good. I'm ready to move on.
Okay. Ms. Robinson? You're good too. All right. Is there anybody else that would like to chime in on this? If not, let's cast our votes for the mayor shall present up to 3 candidates for the manager to be hired with the endorsement of 6 or more commission votes. Who's Ms. Backus? Okay, you're back in the lineup.
So in the text conversation that you started last night with all of us, you indicated that the city attorney and Carl Vinson Institute had suggested that the mayor's, or the amount of votes to hire and fire the city manager be the same number of votes. It also was noted in that conversation that the majority of people at the town hall meeting, because that's been the only public discussion about this, that's been the only discussion at all, that the majority of them wanted to see a supermajority vote. So that, all of that kind of contradicts with motion B and then C, because those are 2 different numbers, which goes against the advice of both Carl Vinson and the attorney, and then it also does not factor in the public input.
I think you're going to find that's going to be taken care of very shortly, your concern. Can I, go ahead.
But isn't now the time to address the concerns?
It is, but you're ahead of a motion that would do exactly what you're asking us to do. So it says 7. I'm aware that there's a substitute motion coming that would make it equal. How about let's hear from Carl Vinson, and then we can carry on from there.
So I want to make that clear that our comment was not a recommendation, but it was that it is the most common practice to have the number to hire and the number to remove be the same, and what those numbers. But we also have seen them be different, and so it really depends on the will of this committee if you want those numbers to be the same. And the question is fundamentally, do you want it to be a simple majority, or do you want it to be some sort of supermajority? And we have seen it both ways. The most common practice is a simple majority. But again, I will defer to the committee as to any sort of recommendation as opposed to common practice.
Would you also explain for this body the concern about deploying a supermajority?
On which side?
Any vote we take as it relates, why it's smarter to have it be the same to hire and to terminate, hire and remove, and that the concern is when you put it to a supermajority, you may find yourself in a position where somebody is non-performing and you don't have the votes to remove that person. Is that essentially paraphrasing?
Sure. There are 2 challenges. One is that you don't want to tie the hands of the commission to be able to change directions of a manager, right? And if you put the threshold too high, in other words, if you say that it takes 8 votes as opposed to a simple majority, then is it too hard to be able to fire a manager who is not performing their job? And I think that's a reasonable thought experiment to engage in to make sure that you're comfortable with the level of threshold. Now, the reason when we have seen supermajorities, they have sometimes differentiated the type of firing. And so if it's firing for cause, it is more common to be, for example, a simple majority. If it's a termination just because of the will of the commission to go in a different direction, not because the manager is not performing their job, but they just, I'm going to make up something silly, they don't like the way they came in, the color of their hair that day, right? Then having a supermajority for something that is, and part of that is when you fire somebody without cause, in Georgia, you don't have to have cause, right? But managers often have a element in their contract that if you fire them without cause, there is a severance package that kicks in, and it is possible that you want that threshold to be higher so that you don't expose the city to an undue financial burden. So those are kind of the arguments on both sides of that issue.
Mr. Fouché.
Madam Chair, we have a motion and a second, but we call the question.
We still have 3 other people down the line. All right, 2 people. Ms. Backus.
I think this motion has kind of 2 parts to it, whether or not the mayor should be able to present the 3 candidates, and then how many votes it should take. As I said, I was stationed at that table at the town hall meeting that the League of Women Voters did, and that was the topic of our table. And what I heard from community members is they are not comfortable with the same number of votes that it takes to get an alcohol license to be able to hire and fire a city manager. They believe that we should require more than that. There was one gentleman that said that it should require 5 votes, but everybody else either said 7 or 8. I don't think a supermajority is fair because I don't think you're going to get a supermajority in order to hire and fire anybody. But I do think it is realistic for us to consider 7 votes to hire and to fire, and I realize that that's going into motion C a little bit too. The other thing, though, that was discussed was about the mayor presenting 3 candidates. We did hear from the director of HR, and she said that she does contract through procurement with talent bank agencies, and the community feedback at my table was that they felt like it would be best, and I believe that the school board, not going to put her on the spot, but I believe this is the way that the school board does it too, where there's a point system that the talent bank agency uses to determine who is most qualified, and then all of those nominees are given over to the governing body. And so I would ask that we open that up for discussions, that we can talk about all of the different options, and then again to discuss 7 votes.
Mr. Pearson.
And thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, Embody, this is a current practice that the government is using at this time. The mayor simply presents 3 candidates for a manager to be hired with the endorsement of 6 or more commission votes. I don't see any confusion with that. We just simply, I don't know whether it's a practice, but we just simply want it in writing, and we need to move forward with the motion at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Two stabs. All right, let us call for the vote.
Madam Chair.
Sir.
Just for my reading the motion, could there be clarity on what endorsement means? I assume that means this affirmative vote.
Point. So, a point might be I think that's the word Lori prefers.
Okay. Endorsement, I'm not entirely sure what that means, so I'm not sure if the maker could clarify what that word means or have a substitute word for that for drafting purposes.
Simply with the approval of the 6 or more commission votes.
You're modifying your own motion to read, the mayor shall present up to 3 candidates for the manager to be hired with the approval of 6 or more commission votes.
That will require that whoever made the second needs to second the changing of that motion.
And that was Ms. Robinson that made the second on the original motion.
Madam Chair.
She's accepting that? Okay.
No, because we still have people in queue.
Yeah, I see. Pardon me. All right, so Ms. Backus, you've spoken twice on this already. I think I'm going to acknowledge Mr. France next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. just to be clear, I'm gonna look at this because I think words
Come to order,
matter.
please.
Words matter. If the mayor is presenting 3 candidates and the mayor is a part of the commission, correct? And he's presenting 3 candidates to be hired, and they're endorsed, are we saying it's being endorsed by 6 of the commissioners or being endorsed by the commission? Because the mayor is a part of the commission, so that would make the 7 votes. If you had 6 commissioners and included the mayor that's presenting, that's 7 total. Am I missing something here?
The way it was, the way the motion was made, commission singular indicating the body of 11. Is that everybody's understanding?
Yes. So is that, are we saying 6 plus 1, meaning 6 commissioners and the mayor would make number 7?
We're saying 7 members of the commission, 6 members of the commission.
So the mayor is one of that 6. Okay, I just for clarity, to make sure we're straight. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Hang on one second. So, let's see who's next. Has not spoken yet. Coach Bryant.
I just wanted to make sure that it's not necessarily 3, but it says up to 3. So if the mayor brought 1 name or 2 names, be okay, and they could bring as many as 3, but it'd be up to 3, but no more than 3, I'm thinking.
That is correct. That's the intent of the motion.
Okay, Ms. Backus.
I would just like to point out, first of all, that the reason why I was so opposed to us having these conversations right now up here on the dais during this meeting and discussing these things in actuality for the first time is because we do rush to vote. And I stated that in our text conversation yesterday. We rush to vote, which means we don't all get an opportunity to, when somebody else brings up something else, and I might say, okay, but look from this perspective, we don't get that opportunity because we're rushing to hurry up and get to vote, which is why these conversations need to happen in the workshop, just like we voted on as an entire committee. If we can't even follow our own rules, how do we expect anybody in the government to follow the charter that we're coming up with?
Thank you. Ms. Robinson.
I make a motion that we postpone the vote to the next meeting.
Okay, is there a second for that?
I second.
Okay. All in favor? Do we even need to cast that vote on that, or is that just assumed?
There's a motion, a second, you need to record the vote.
All right. Let's go ahead and cast our votes.
Madam
For
Chair.
clarification, can I ask Ms. Robinson something? Did you intend to second the modified motion? No, I never seconded the modified. All right, so that. Okay, that'll come up on the next meeting then. All right, let's go ahead and get our votes in.
Madam Chair,
you got a view on the queue.
So to be clear, are we voted on to postpone the vote? This is what we voted on,
Yes.
correct? Till next time.
That is correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
No?
Mr. Pearson,
No.
that motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Well, let me just, for the record, voting yes, Ms. Robinson, Ms. Backus, Mr. Bryant, Mr. Lewis, Mr. Powell, and Mr. Wimley. Voting no, Mr. France, Mr. Coleman, Mr. Fouché, and Mr. Pearson.
And Ms. Wilhelmie.
Wilhelmie. Yes.
Okay, moving on. Next motion is to be, clerk is still there, but did you have more?
Item number
Lena?
C.
I'm sorry?
You
Item
ready?
number C?
Item number C, The commission shall require 7 votes to terminate the manager.
All right. Is there a second for that motion?
Well,
I'll
who's
make a
making
motion
it?
to make her.
Who's going, okay, Mr. Charlie's going to make that motion. Is there a second? Okay, dies for lack of a second. All right. We'll put that off to the next meeting because that's the corollary to the other. All right, let's move on to the next motion.
Item D, in the event of a vacancy, a deputy manager will assume the manager's responsibilities on an interim basis until the commission hires a permanent manager.
All right, is there a motion to that effect? None being had, is there a substitute motion to that effect?
Madam Chair, I have a substitute motion for that.
All right,
Madam Chair, my substitute motion to item number D is in the event that there is a vacancy in the manager's office, the mayor will propose up to 3 nominees, and the commission will appoint, the commission will appoint the interim manager.
all right. Is there a second for that substitute motion?
Madam Chair? Mm-hmm. I just want to point out that a vacancy doesn't always mean that the city manager is not coming back. So it seems like here you're saying in the event of vacancy, there will be a deputy manager until a permanent manager is hired. Well, they might just be out for illness and be coming back. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to point that out to you.
Can you, if we have not had a second to this substitute motion, unless somebody wants to offer one, can I request that you bring language to further elucidate this motion to the next meeting? Okay, does that meet with everybody's? Okay, and so Mr. France and then Ms. Robinson.
So you can't make a substitute motion when the first motion didn't go anywhere.
It would be the nature of a motion, but I think the motion failed for lack of a second anyway.
All right. Mr. Powell.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that the annual budget shall be presented to the full commission at the first meeting in September and adopted at the first meeting in November, along with public meetings be held as necessary.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. France and Mr. Powell and Mr. France. All right, discussion. All right, so you're Mr. Wimberly.
I believe the budget requirement is a state requirement.
Ms. Burrow, you want to address that?
The issue here is that when you want this budget to be presented so that it can be adopted prior to the fiscal year beginning.
Doesn't the state set the requirement for budget adoption?
No?
They don't?
When it is, not that I'm aware of. Jim, do you have a different comment on that, unless I'm understanding the question incorrectly?
I don't believe that you have to have a 12/31 fiscal year. But I think the question is fundamentally, should the timing of the budget be an ordinance or should it be a charter requirement? And if we want to say, if the body wants to say that it's September, what I would do is probably say that it will be presented 9 months after the close of the fiscal year. Just because I'm not entirely sure, but I think a government can have like I think you can have a June fiscal year versus a 12/31 fiscal year, but September would be 9 months. So I think that's the intent is to say you'll present a budget within 9 months and then you would adopt it 60 days later. So I think that's what addressed the issue that Mr. Wembley is sort of raising, is the timing is state-driven, and if the state said that you had if they changed to a June 31st, then or June 30th, you may want to have that built into it.
And I think to address Mr. Wembley also, the concern is you're going to have it adopted before you have any spending based on it. You know, you can't spend your money unless the budget is adopted. So you're trying to give yourself enough time in order for it to be in place so that you can have the spending based on the new budget. He is correct. You can have a fiscal year. Some have it July 1st. I've seen some that are October 1st. I've seen some that are January 1st. So that's why it doesn't say it has to be by September. It has to be by this date. Does that answer your question between the two of us?
No.
Okay.
Ms. Lori, could you please explain when the balanced budgets passed by various municipalities is due to the state? Is it December 31st or November 30th? Is that what you're asking, Lenny?
So the state requires that budget documents are submitted after they are approved, and that deadline is one that's determined by DCA. So that is not, to my understanding, is not a statutorily driven date, but there are some of those dates. For example, the audit has to be completed 6 months following the close of the fiscal year. Similarly, those budget documents are generally expected to be submitted within 6 months of the start of the fiscal year, but that is a state rule, to my understanding, not a state statutory requirement.
Okay. Ms. Brill, I had a question that might help others too, because I had a question from other members. In one of our discussions, we had talked about, was this a reasonable time frame? And would you respond to that question? I've actually, with the permission of this body, we also polled Mr. Schroer, but he was going to respond after my phone has been off. Is it okay if I check? Is it okay with you guys? My phone is off right now. Okay. So while you're responding, I'm going to look to see if he answered us.
So again, to make sure I'm clear on the question is, what is the appropriate time necessary to go through the budget process? And in general, budgets start being planned essentially as soon as the current fiscal year starts. So let's take the case of the budget for Augusta Richmond. The new budget will be implemented on January 1. That budget process started on January 1 of the previous year with budget instructions going out sometime. The general practice is that budget instructions go out sometime in the first 3 months of the fiscal year, so that over the first 6 months of the fiscal year, departments can be putting their budget proposals together, so that about 6 months out, you can start having your internal budget hearings, so that a formal budget can be presented to the commission, usually at about the 9-month mark. And that then gives them some time to make a decision within a reasonable time frame before the fiscal year starts. So having budget presentations start, having a budget submitted by the 9th month of the fiscal year is a reasonable and common practice, and expecting that budget to then be approved within 60 days would also be a reasonable and sound practice, because if it gets up much closer to that, you end up rushing budgetary decisions, and we all have seen, rush budget decisions don't make for good budget decisions, and you don't want to have the kind of case where we are in the federal government, where a budget hasn't been approved and you aren't able to spend funds.
Okay, very good. Here, Mr. Schroer did answer, if the body would like to hear this. May and June 25, the Finance Committee approves 2026 budget calendar, community budget survey opens, commission approves FY budget calendar, and then there's a budget retreat. As far as the actual proposal, departmental work sessions, August 25th is deadline for all. How about I just send this to you guys? Nobody has their phones on. Anyway, again, that's laid out mirroring what Dr. Facer is saying. Okay. Q then. Ms. Backus.
I would propose that we postpone this until the next meeting to be voted on, although I think this is probably one of the easiest votes that we're going to ever make. I feel like at this point, we would be negligent if we do make any decisions today, because the professionals are all telling us that they don't know all of the things. We don't have the answers. It didn't sound like that was a clear answer from Mr. Schroer. I don't want to say his last name the wrong way. So we require the appropriate input from the people that actually do that job, so that we make sure that we're giving them enough time and the resources that they need to get their work done. So I would make a motion to postpone the vote until next time on this, when we do have the appropriate information.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll vote on that. Discussion. Let's go to Ms. Robinson.
Let's handle this vote first.
Okay. Let's handle this vote first. If you're ready, Madam Clerk, we'll vote on this. The vote is to defer it till the next
Substitute motion.
meeting. Was made by Angela Backus and Lonnie Wimberly.
Postpone to the next meeting.
Everybody cast your votes, please.
Seven, okay. Madam Chair,
No?
well, have you voted? No. Okay. That's Ms. Robinson voting yes, Ms. Backus, Mr. Lewis, Mr. Wimberly, and Mr. Fouché. Voting no, Mr. France, Mr. Bryant, Mr. Powell, Mr. Coleman, and Mr. Pearson.
And Ms. Wilhelmi.
So the count on that is?
Measure failed.
It fails.
Measure failed. All right. So then we come back to the main motion that was on the floor.
Was there a second?
Already got the second.
That was it had Mr. Powell moved, Mr. France seconded.
I'd like to propose a substitute.
Oh, whoa.
Okay.
Whoa.
Pardon me?
I've been in the queue.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Pardon me, Ms. Robinson. To finish your comment, that's right.
I would like to propose a substitute motion. The annual budget shall be presented to the full commission at the first meeting of the 9th month following the beginning of the fiscal year, and adopted at the first meeting of the 11th month following the beginning of the fiscal year. Public meetings will be held prior to adoption.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay. Who was it speaking? Frank? Okay.
There you go.
All right. Discussion? Can't see where the two. All right. Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What the motion, original motion is exactly what the commission is doing now. think that we would make it clearer if we could get well, you have the information from Mr. Storer, right? And my understanding is in June, the budget proposals from each department are required. And then shortly after that, they begin the budget discussions with the department heads. And it has always been my understanding that locally they try to have a budget passed by the end of November, the last meeting in November, although that has been difficult sometimes, and they suspend that meeting until December, and then first meeting in December, they vote to pass the budget and adjourn that meeting, and then begin the December meeting. I have seen that in the past. That's my comment.
Okay. Mr. Plunkett, pardon me, I'm sorry, one second. Mr. Fouché.
My substitute motion just provides clarity to the original motion. The motion would be the annual budget for the upcoming fiscal year shall be presented to the full commission at the first meeting in September and adopted or modified as needed at the first meeting in November. Public meetings will be held prior to adoption.
So I believe parliamentarily we have to deal with the substitute motion or ask them to combine their motions since they're very similar. Mr.
Correct.
Plunkett.
You can't have a substitute to a substitute. So you would have to vote on the substitute motion and then the primary motion, and then another motion could be made by Mr. Fouché.
To add language?
Yes, or they could, she could amend her motion appropriately. If I may address, you're getting ready to recognize me, the currently, just for a little bit of anecdotal, and I'm obviously not a finance person, but your budget year basically audit runs from January to June, and June to December is kind of your budget. As to Mr. Wimberly's comment, I think I understand now what he was making. The budget has to be approved by the year end, fiscal year end.
Yep.
The commission a number of years ago, Ms. Bonner can probably correct me, I'm probably a little bit wrong, but I believe it was Commissioner Steve Shepard who made a motion that they would adopt the budget in November, the first meeting in November, so that they would not be having to have multiple meetings during December, during the Christmas break, to avoid that. So that has always been handled by ordinance, the timing. Statutorily, as to Mr. Wimberly, you have to have one by the end of your fiscal year to begin that. So just for that purposes, I just want to give you an idea. So if you have the budget, which I think now has to be the end of October possibly, or 1st of November, that what you'll do is just move it up the whole cycle from June to maybe, May. And then arguably what you're going to end up doing is, if you have the same CFO or finance director, they're just going to juggle audit in that a little bit more. But as to the original question, we can't have a substitute to a substitute. So we need to either amend the substitute that's on the floor to combine those two issues, or alternatively vote and then move forward on that.
Okay.
The motion as presented doesn't give us the opportunity to modify it before the first meeting in November. It just allows us to adopt it.
Madam Chair, once a budget is presented, and I think that's what it's saying, the body the person who's in charge of presenting the budget, whether or not that's the manager, the clerk, the mayor, whoever you want to say who presents it, that is their recommendation. And then there is debate over the budget, and it is a different budget that is ultimate. Well, it doesn't have to be, but it is frequently a different budget than what is recommended. So I think what you're saying that is being presented, the annual budget, is the recommended budget, and then there is debate, and then there's a final vote by the commission to approve it. And as you'll hear frequently, budgets are living animals in that they also oftentimes modify during the ensuing year. But I think for clarity purposes, I think when you say the annual budget is to be the proposed annual budget is presented, and then the debate goes from there.
Okay. So, if I didn't hear this right, you guys tell me. I think the two motions are close. One adds a little more verbiage. Do you want to amend your motion?
After Ms. Backus has her
Ms.
comments.
So I just want to follow up on what Mr. Powell said, and I think that's my concern, what he was saying, you know, that they've been passed in the last meeting in November and into December. If we're going to do this, can we do this the right way and make sure that we're giving them enough time? That's my concern, because if we're going to put a rule into place that it's got to be the first meeting in November, but they're going into the end of November and then into December, then we're purposely setting them up to be breaking the rules that we're putting in place, and we're wasting our effort. So I don't know if we can do, like, is it realistic to say, do we need to start in August in order to give them enough time? Like, what needs to be adjusted to make sure that we don't go to the end of November or into December, unless we want to change it and make it go to the end of November? But I just feel like in the way that it's worded right now, it's not set up to do it within, like what Mr. Powell was saying,
So the substitute
reality.
motion handled it differently. So will you relinquish to Ms. Robinson for her to answer that question?
Well, I think her motion was still September to the first meeting in November.
If I may, I can speak for myself. The budgets, when the budget cycle starts, is not something we're putting in the ordinance. Not in the ordinance, in the charter. We're not discussing when the budget cycle starts. We're discussing when the budget is presented to the commission. They can start in May, they can start in June, they could start the weekend before. It's up to whomever. That's not what we're discussing. We're discussing when it is presented to the commission. The reason I use the 9th and the 11th month versus September, November is because there could be an instance in the future where they change the fiscal year. So to eliminate the possibility of having to make those adjustments, the 9th and the 11th month solves the same thing. It just doesn't behold them to keep the same fiscal year. Because if they would have to do that, I would believe that change would have to go to the legislature. Am I correct? If we put it in that it has to be specific dates and they decide to change the fiscal year, am I correct in that?
If I may, I think the issue is that you're going to put in the fiscal year in the charter, and depending on the methodology of amendments to the charter, then some issues require legislative approval. Mm-hmm. Some could theoretically be at the commission level. So if there was a reason to change, so again, like change of structure of the government, that would be a legislative issue. But I believe there's some discussion of having some ministerial changes that could be made without legislative involvement, and that could be one of these things. But I mean, as a practical matter, I seriously doubt you're going to change your fiscal year at any time. It would be more likely if you had an odd fiscal year that they would change it to be a 12/31.
So again, the fiscal year can be changed by ordinance. And so I would suggest that you continue to have that as an ordinance issue. And I think Jim's right that for practical purposes, it's not likely that it's going to change, but we have seen it change. And there is not currently any sort of movement by the state, but there could at some point say, let's put everybody on the same fiscal year as the state. And that would require a change, but it would likely be able to be handled under a home rule change to the charter, as opposed to, but having it in numbered months as opposed to named months would be slightly more change-proof, if you will.
Okay.
Thank you. And then Steve, the differences between what Ms. Robinson has proposed and yours, just to bring this to a head, you want to read yours real quick again to see if Ms. Robinson wants to consider this?
I had proposed the annual budget for the upcoming fiscal year shall be presented to the full commission at the first meeting in September and adopted or modified as needed at the first meeting in November. Public meetings will be held prior to adoption. I would be fine modifying that to be the 9th month of the fiscal year, but I don't think that accomplishes any objective, and the 11th month of the fiscal year. But again, I think you've made the point. It's likely not to change the fiscal year to begin with.
Right, so you're saying that you would accept Ms. Robinson's motion pretty much as is?
I think it's irrelevant to name the month. I don't think it matters.
All right, very good.
So to present I will present a modification to the substitute motion.
Okay.
The proposed annual budget for the following fiscal year shall be presented to the full commission at the first meeting of the 9th month following the beginning of the fiscal year, and adopted and or modified as needed at the first meeting in the 11th month following the beginning of the fiscal year. Public meetings will be held prior to adoption.
And who seconded that? You proposed it. Who was this?
I modified, so it has to be seconded.
That was me, Frank Lewis. I second.
Okay. All right, very good. All right, is everyone clear on what we're voting on? That was Mr. Lewis? Okay. All right, let's cast our vote. I'm sorry, I don't have anybody in the queue. Let's cast our votes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Pearson? Yes. Okay. That motion carries with Ms. Backus voting no.
Thank you. All right, moving on to general conditions, which was Ms. McCain's recommendation to this body last month. I'd like to call upon Mr. France to present a concern that has been going on for a couple weeks now.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, just to recap, for the benefit of General Counsel who was not here last session on the 16th of October, my concern that I raised on the 16th of October has to do with the subject matter and language that was in one of the substitute motions that was presented in meeting October the 2nd meeting, that was displayed or presented to us in the minutes at the October 16th meeting. And basically, from that discussion we had in normal session, we took that discussion to our afternoon session, which was a workshop, and we kind of charged Carl Vincent to bring us back some language. So just to recap and bring General Counsel up to date on what was actually said and what was charged to Carl Vincent to bring us back to this body today. We had a motion that was presented by Mr. Lewis, two motions actually. The second motion, substitute motion, there was two substitute motions to be correct, to be clear, that was presented. The second substitute motion, I will read it. I could have the clerk read it if that would be more proper, if she has a copy in front of her. Okay. Second substitute motion.
Be it further moved, the county manager shall report directly to the commission, which includes the mayor, and be granted the authority to appoint and remove department heads. All appointments and removals must comply with established human resource policies, performance standards, and any procedural frameworks adopted by ordinance or resolution.
Thank you, Ms. So based on that information that she just read into your hearing, I went back and reviewed October 2nd's video of that meeting. And I raised the question on that motion, number 2, based on the language and the language in substitute motion number 1. Because in substitute motion number 1, it clearly states that we are trying to transition to a commission manager form of government. And the duties and roles and responsibilities of commission manager form of government is clearly outlined. And I think, Carl Vincent, are you prepared today to give us the authority of that manager's position as far as duties, roles, and responsibilities? You are. Okay, so by looking at motion number 2, which I questioned before we voted on it on October the 2nd, that language in the B portion of the motion where it says, be it for where the manager will be required to report directly to the commission to receive authority, actually undermines the motion and authorities in motion, substitute motion number 1. So I asked for clarity on that motion that day before we voted on it. And it came back to me, and also Mr. Pearson wanted further clarification, because it seems like this motion, substitute motion number 2, is taking away the authority of the county manager by having him do something, go somewhere, or seek approval from a body that he has already have independent authority to do in substitute motion number 1. So Carl Vincent tried to further clarify to get the intent of what the motion number 2 was presented. And to my knowledge, I don't think they ever got the intent of the person that submitted the motion, Mr. Lewis, of what his intent was by having that same language in substitute motion number 2. And the reason I bring that up is because I voted, this whole body voted majority, everybody voted for both substitute motions. But on the second vote, substitute motion, once we brought the question up and we thought we had it clarified, I was under the impression when it came back to the minutes on September 16th, on October 16th, that language where it says that the manager is required to report directly to the commission would no longer be there, that was going to be the language that was going to be removed from that particular motion, and it was not. So at that meeting on October the 16th, I brought it to the attention before we approved the minutes, and General Counsel of the day that was here, which was not Mr. Plunkett, said that basically I was bringing a concern or issue to the floor at the wrong time. So my thing this morning is to try to get some clarity so we can put this to rest and move on to other more important items that we have. So if I could get, if Carl Vincent would, Madam Chair, just share with us what the authorities of a county manager are as far as hiring and firing, please.
So the language that is commonly used in the model charters reads, the manager shall appoint, and when the manager deems it necessary for the good of the city, suspend or remove all city employees and administrative officers the manager appoints, except as otherwise provided by law or personnel ordinances adopted pursuant to the charter. So in the specific language that is typically used around a manager, they do not have to, and I think part of the confusion is around that word reports, right? The manager would have the sole authority to hire and fire those department heads without having to get any clearance from anybody. That's the typical language that we use in the charter.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Madam Chair, if I may, then I guess for clarity, maybe I should pose the question to Mr. Lewis, who submitted the substitute motion, to get his intent on why the language was left in. Maybe he has a viable reason. I don't know what it is. Maybe we just let him give his intent, or because it was a substitute motion from a motion that Mr. Wimley submitted, which he took down prior to the substitute motion that had the same language in it. So maybe Mr. Lewis, I will give him an opportunity to give us his intent, or maybe even, or if Mr. Wimbley have a comment, to chime in as well.
I believe that is fair. Mr. Lewis, would you like to address that?
Madam Chair, I thought we had in our discussion when we had the workshop, we all came to an agreement, and we asked Carl Vincent to clarify the language. And I think we all, as 11 people, all agreed on it, and we put that to bed then. We haven't unnecessary discussion about something that's already been resolved. And to answer your question, the intent, I think, well, Coach Bryant cleared it up when he said, take out and be granted, put a period there. That's when we got clarity. The manager will report to all 11 members of the board. The decision to hire and fire, the manager will make. I thought it was very clear, but I'm not sure. Are we on the same page now?
Well, I think it's still not clear. All right, so I guess my question is, Mr. Lewis, are you saying that the manager should report to the commission to be granted authority? Or are you saying that language? Well, then the question is, we have a motion that was approved with that language in there. Do we need to rescind that motion and remove that language? So what's the correct, General Counsel, what's the correct way to proceed?
Mr. France, if you feel that there's ambiguity in either the word report or granted authority to appoint and remove, then you would be appropriate to request a motion to reconsider. And then that would be, you put that on the bodies today, and then next meeting that would be discussed, and you could pose it'd be a two-step process, rescind this motion, and then have your, I'll call it corrected motion, and then the body would vote on that. If there was obviously you'd be making the motion, and if it was seconded and if it approves, then whatever clarifying language. But I think what I'm understanding you is that you're asking if reporting directly to the commission requires the commission to grant the manager authority to appoint and remove department heads. Is that correct?
Yes, General Counsel. Basically what I'm saying, the way I receive that information, just thinking about it, is that if we had a vacancy, let's just apply that language. If we had a vacancy of a department head, before that manager could actually go hire somebody to fill that vacancy, he would have to report to the commission to receive their approval to go out and hire somebody. In the same vein, if there's some action that need to be taken, disciplinary action that needs to be taken, in order for that manager to do that, he would have to go to the commission and receive approval to do that action. So that's the way I'm reading the motion.
Well, to be quite honest with you, I read it the opposite.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm saying that is that if you were to look at the first one, is we're transitioning to a commission manager form of government, which updates titles, roles, and things of that nature. Currently, the department, the administrator, which would be your manager if you were taking the same, currently does not have that authority to hire and fire. And so the way I interpret this is that the county manager will report to the commission, not to the mayor, but to the commission, but the commission includes the mayor. But they're also granted, that is, the managers granted the authority to appoint and remove department heads. So that is an additional role that is the manager would have. So the way I read it is that the reporting, and that's maybe not the most ideal word, but the commission would have the right to hire, fire, terminate, which we was, A, B, C, and D, so to speak, that person. But if there is, in your mind or any other commissioners, ambiguity about the manager having that authority to hire and fire, then I think it would be appropriate for you to put on the agenda for next time to modify this motion to clarify what that duty is. So I think it's, the way I read it, it's what you were just explaining, and that's the case. But if you feel that either other committee members or that the Carl Vinson Institute, when they are scribing this language, may get that incorrect, there are two ways that you can address it. One is to, again, bring it next week, suggest more clear language, or alternative, when the final report comes, address it at that point in time. Personally, I think it would be best if you have concerns, do it next week. Just, you're putting everyone on notice, you're going to bring the motion to reconsider this matter, and then you can have language that you maybe more artfully addresses what you think it's supposed to say, and then we put it up for a vote, and then Rex and team will draft accordingly.
Thank you, General Counsel. I think Carl Vinson, you want to say something as well, if it's okay, Madam Chair?
Sure. And I guess when you raise the question of intent, one of the questions that we asked was, when you pass these motions, are you specifically wedded to the language, or are you trying to transmit to us a conceptual idea that we would then articulate in standard language? And our understanding from that conversation was that you were giving us kind of conceptual direction on which way to go, and that what we would then do, and again, if this is not the intent of the committee, I want to make sure we're clear, but if that's the intent of the committee, then our plan, and we were prepared to have some discussion in the workshop this afternoon about some of the specific language, is to make sure that we get those things clarified so that the formal charter language that you adopt would be different from this motion, but it would be in harmony with the mandate of the motion, if you will.
Thank you, Carl Vinson. So, Madam Chair, based on everything that's been presented by both about council and Carl Vinson, it's my intent to bring it up at the next meeting, that we go back and correct this language to make it more harmonizing to our intent for a city manager, to make sure we are clear that it is no doubt in anyone's mind that the city manager has the authority to hire and fire those personnel.
Put it down on the agenda. Ms. Robinson.
I think we have to be conscious that when we do these motions, the language that we use is not the intent to be duplicated word for word in the charter. I believe the intent of Mr. Lewis was what we just discussed. Yes, they would have hiring and firing power, but Carl Vinson does their piece. I think the ambiguity that I see here, because I was not in the workshop, is that the motion denotes managerial authority over department heads, but the very first line is general to the job of the city manager, not specifically department heads. The city manager, the county manager, city manager, whatever, reporting to the commission isn't germane to just department heads. It's the role. So now here's a clarification question I have. Is it the intent to report to the commission with regards to what decisions they made. And I'm not saying that they don't have the authority. I'm saying they may just tell the commission, these are the department heads we removed, so forth and so forth. Or was it intended to be the overall, the city manager reports to the commission, including the manager? Because that can have two different thought processes.
You want me to answer?
Go ahead, Mr.
So it was the
Answer
intent
that.
for them to come before the commission and let them know what they've done. That's
Okay.
all.
Perfect. That's satisfying.
All right, let's see. We have Ms. Backus. Actually, we have the clerk.
No.
Okay, very good. Ms. Backus?
I agree with Mr. Lewis. I think we discussed this at length in the workshop and came to an agreement and a mutual conclusion that Carl Vinson understood the intent of the vote and that it would be worded according to the intent of the vote. I don't know how many more times this is going to come up if it's already been addressed. And we will be addressing it again when we get that wording back from Carl Vinson. I also I want to point out that we do have rules of procedure, and multiple times members of this committee today have talked out of turn. You are supposed to wait until you are called on by the chair before you speak.
Thank you. Okay, we've got Mr. Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a full understanding of what Mr. Lewis is saying now. We just need to change the language. That's all we need to do. Of reporting.
Change the intent.
Yeah, right. We know now that the manager does not need approval to hire, fire, whatever the intention is.
Right.
But we need the language. Okay.
It's a massive culture change. All right, can I call, that was Mr. Pearson, Mr. France.
Madam Chair, I'm the one that brought this to the attention of the body. And just to be clear, in the reason, let me give you my intent. So I'll be on record and perfectly clear. It seemed to be that there was a particular emphasis placed on dealing with department heads. I did extensive research on, as you know, Madam Chair, on the authorities of a county manager, commission manager, professional manager, and everywhere that I've looked, and for as my research states, what the authorities were. But this particular motion put particular emphasis on department heads. Now we know for people that has researched that the authority of a city manager is not only just the department heads, it's government workers as a whole. So to me, it was seeming like we was drawing particular emphasis on this particular subject. So that's the reason I felt like we needed to make it perfectly clear what the intent of that particular motion was. So I approached Carl Vinson early this morning during our break while was going to print out the minutes and asked him, did you get the intent from our last meeting so you can present to us today how we should word this particular motion? And what I got back, we have the language for what the authority of the manager is, but we really didn't get the intent of the motion. So that's the reason I brought it up again. So when we said that it was clear when we left the last meeting, apparently it was not clear because they did not get the intent of what the motion, the reason the motion was presented. And that's, and that's my final comment on the subject. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair.
Mr. Wimberly.
Oh, boy, that was long. Madam Chair.
Sir.
The first motion read, be it moved, and it talks about what the manager, it talks about the form of government and the manager there. And in there it says that the changes should include all correspondence update to title, roles, and intergovernment relationship and reflects a streamline. The second one says, be it further moved, meaning it's going to give you some more instruction. Now, if you upset, or not upset, I'm sorry, that's the wrong word. If you're concerned with the word granted, the county manager have to know he have certain authority. And somebody have to tell him that he has those authority. And that's what that granted is talking about. So Carl Vincent could clear that up as to what that granted is telling everyone. So it's not that it's not saying that the county manager have to go back to the commission every time he makes a decision. It's telling the county manager, you have these authorities that's granted. You have these authorities. And that's what it's doing. That's the way I understand it.
Thank you, Mr. Wimberly. Ms. Robinson?
So I think I have further clarity on why this is such a booger for Mr. France. And I think the reason the language specific to department heads is because in our current charter, that's how it reads. It's very specific to department heads in the current charter. So to follow that up with some additional specific language helps to clarify that. So I hope that clarifies it.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. We have voted to move that to the next meeting. Carl Vinson, you're going to come up with very specific language. And I think it would probably be wise to circulate that to the entire body so everybody's got it ahead of time. All right, thank you. We have one last motion before adjournment. Coach?
Well, I just want to make sure that we discuss at some point in time what the minimum qualifications for city manager shall be and so forth, and experience and things like that. So my motion would be the minimal qualification for a city manager shall be master's degree in public administration, public affairs or business administration, 4 years experience in a appointed managerial or administrative position in local government, be accredited by ICMA, or in the progress on track to complete accreditation process within 6 months. I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Pearson, Coach Bryant, Mr. Pearson. Discussion. Let's go with, Clint, you have yours on, Mr. Fouché.
Coach Bryant, I completely understand the purpose of this motion and support it, but I'm questioning should it be handled as an ordinance, and would like some response from Carl Vincent Institute on that before we move to vote on this.
In general, it is most common to have very broad language about administrative and technical expertise in the charter, but to leave more specific requirements around degree type, master's degree, those kinds of things for the ordinance is a more typical approach.
So let's go to Ms. Robinson.
It was kind of along those lines, and that being that ICMA may be the standard now, but there may be additional standards later. I think maybe the language should be relevant should be more around a professional city manager that has certain qualifications that are denoted by a job description in ordinance.
Say that again. I'm sorry, I missed the last part.
So maybe I need to do a substitute motion for that?
No.
Do I need to do a substitute?
If you're proposing to change what he said, but right now you can be discussing what your views of what would be a better description of what to do.
Okay.
And then at the end of that, you could make a substitute motion if you wanted to, but you can discuss other avenues or other requirements as just debate.
Sheppy, I had trouble hearing the last thing you said, so.
So what I think the language should be more related to is the city manager will be required to have professional experience that will be denoted by a job description that will be handled in ordinance. And if you'd like, Coach, I could present that as a substitute, or you can modify.
I have no problem with the substitute motion.
Okay. So I present a substitute motion to have the language to read: the city manager shall be hired as a professional manager with requirements and experience denoted by a job description via ordinance. It sounded better the first time I said it.
All right, is there a second for the substitute motion?
Second.
Mr. France, okay. All right, let's call on Mr. Wimberly.
I'm in another one of my confused moments here. What are we doing?
So Coach made a motion. Similar to the other motions, Ms. Robinson has offered a substitute motion that sharpens the pencil.
Okay.
It changes the language around a bit. Coach agrees.
Madam Chair, that's good. Now, you got an agenda here. What was...
We're following Ms. McLean's recommendations from the last meeting is what we're doing.
Oh, so that's in the minutes that I don't have a copy of? Okay.
I don't know if it's captured there or not, but it was from Ms. McLean. Go ahead.
But I think the coach motion, which is a good motion.
It is.
It was already part of what Carl Vincent's supposed to bring back to us, the qualification, education, and so forth of the manager. And in the first motion, the substitute motion that we just dealt with, it talks about them bringing back that information. So why do we need another motion now when they're going to clarify everything that was in the first motion about the qualification and duties?
I don't quite know how to answer that. Ms. Robinson, you want to answer that?
I think he makes a good point. And if it helps clarify things, I can rescind my motion and offer a substitute motion that we hold this for discussion, if that is helpful.
Okay. Is there a second for that? Okay.
Second.
Mr. Wimberly, all right. Do we have any discussion? We have Ms. Pulliam, Ms. Backus.
I just want to say, I do think that we are ready to move forward on this, but I think the most responsible thing to move forward would be to wait to get that wording, the appropriate wording from Carl Vinson, because what defines professional? You know what I mean? Like, I think if we can get that legal wording, then we skip all these other motions and we can just go straight to it. And so I would agree with postponing it, not because I don't think we're ready to vote on that, but because I think it would be more responsible to get that legal wording from the get-go.
So we're going to have to vote on this substitute motion, but I would like to ask this body, because I am frustrated. Are we going to expect language from Carl Vinson for every issue going forward before we bring it to this body, or are we capable of making motions that reflect our capabilities and then ask them to wordsmith based on that intent, then it comes back to us? What is the pleasure of this group of 11? I'm going to defer to my co-chairman. Go ahead, Coach.
It's been my understanding that we could talk about the intent or conceptually what we're trying to present. And once Carl Vinson has the intent and conception of what we're trying to present, they will provide us appropriate wording to address that. I think that's where we've been the whole time. And so I have no angst with Ms. Robinson's substitute motion, because at the end of the day, I think it gets at trying to make sure the city manager job description includes some basic professional things. And, you know, I've heard of having a master's degree, or some places having a bachelor's and a master's preferred and so forth and so on. But I would leave it up to Carl Vinson to be able to check around the state, around the country, to make sure whatever wording they did provide us was appropriate and adequate. So I think the intent and conceptuality of what we're trying to do is what we're trying to present to Carl Vinson, so they could wordsmith it and bring that back as the final.
Mr. France?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the intent, going back to what Coach just said, I thought the intent was very clear, that he wanted to establish what in his position was the educational requirements for a manager, regardless of how we phrase the manager as being a professional, a county manager, period. The educational requirements, I thought that's what we was trying to narrow down, what his motion was, to establish what those requirements are. I further think that Ms. Robinson had a substitute motion that maybe brought more clarity to what that manager should be called, which may be kind of like two different things, but it doesn't negate what Mr. Bryant suggested as far as the requirements for education, nor does it have anything to do with the substitute motion of what we actually call it, professional manager or county manager or whatever. So I think we just need to, I think we kicked this can further enough down the road. I think we need to, Madam Chair, bring it to a head and have a vote on the subject matter at hand and go with it.
Agree. Mr. Scott? Mr. Wimberly. I'm tired. Mr. Wimberly.
Just in response to your question, I think we got some very intelligent minds on this committee that can come up with some very good direction for the charter to go. But I also want to say that we hired Carl Vinson not to tell us what to do, but to advise us how we're doing it as we go along the way. So they'll just make clear on what is best practice. And so we come from what is best practice to come up with our decision. And as I said, we got clear minds here that should be able to come up with what is the best practice for us. So Coach,
I want to inform you that we have spoken with them for 6 weeks about this, and we talked about it in the workshop, and they have been in the loop on the formation of this motion, so everybody can feel good. That being said, I think the substitute motion does bring clarity.
all right, and may I finish, Madam? And,
Please.
So I just wanted to appreciate the point to talk here. But yes, the substitute matter is a good one, and I go back again and say what Coach brought up is great, but let's get somehow the best wordsmith it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson.
So to answer your question, Madam Chair, the problem is procedural. We do not have clearly defined expectations for how we do this, because it should be the motions are presented, we have some language to review, and then we vote on the language so that we can but that has not been consistently what has been happening. In some areas, we're getting whole language, and then they're asked to wordsmith, and then we come back, and in other areas, we're just voting. So it is, it is my expectation that the chair is supposed to denote how that process is going. And so far, it's just been kind of in the wind. People submit motions whenever they want, whatever topic is on whatever agenda. We're all over the place. So I would ask, Madam Chair and Mr. Vice Chair, to please bring clarity to how we proceed so that we can stop going back and forth over things like this and just be able to vote when we come into a meeting. We should have already done the homework. Carl Vincent should already have the information because each meeting is set around a subject matter so that they can do the job we're paying them to do. And then us as a body are not overwhelmed in a text message at 9 o'clock at night.
So for the benefit of the body and in defense of Carl Vinson, that has been developed every step of the way with Carl Vinson. And I'm sorry I'm not communicating it well enough. I'll work harder.
I appreciate that.
But there's a 1 o'clock cadence meeting every Monday after these meetings. This past week, Coach and I got in the car and drove up to Athens and sat down and had a let's talk kind of thing. And that was very beneficial, and I appreciate you taking the time to do that for us. But be assured, agenda development occurs with Carl Vinson. And you'll find this afternoon we get into the work session, there's a very, exactly what you're asking for is
Then
on that.
why didn't the body have that though?
The body have the...
Why don't we have the cadence of this so that we are prepared?
We have been trying to drive it to that point, and that's where we are. And everybody enjoyed the 16th meeting. I think everybody's going to enjoy this afternoon's meeting. It focuses on one big thing and a couple niggling ones, all of which will form together. The request we are going to make of Carl Vinson is, as soon as we answer those questions next meeting, please bring us language on the entire Article 2 of the Charter, which means put form of government to bed. Bring us language, let us review it, then we'll make our decision, and then it will go in and we'll move on to the next big topic, which is finance.
Okay, but my request is, if they have a cadence, why do we not have a cadence?
Because we have public, for starters, the obligation to not say anything to each other except in little bitty groups, because the public's not involved, we get spanked for doing so.
We wouldn't be spanked for providing information.
No, that's absolutely true. So what you're requesting is a report maybe of what was discussed in cadence?
No. I'm asking for a defined process. This is what the intent of this meeting is. We're discussing this topic. Okay. The next meeting is this topic. You said you have that with Carl Vinson. We do not have that as a body.
Okay.
So we get to see whatever you guys have decided to put on the agenda, and we're all over the charter.
Well, but you can walk and chew gum and take up different matters, all of which in aggregate takes you to the sections getting complete.
That's terribly condescending, but I will leave it at that.
No. I don't mean to be at all. Really, I don't. And I'm sorry it came out that way, but the bottom line is that there is some method to the madness. It's just not going to be everybody's way of doing it, and I will work harder to communicate better. All right, I have been asked to go ahead and call for, we have to do the substitute motion first, okay? We reread the motion again. Sheffy, God love you.
So if you recall, I did rescind that motion, and the substitute motion was actually to postpone.
All right. And that was seconded by Lonnie? Is that right? Yes. Okay, let's vote on that. Everybody cast your votes on shelving this motion for the time being. Rescinding the substitute motion. All right.
Madam Chair, the purpose is, the gist of the motion is to postpone the discussion and vote till next meeting.
Okay. Everybody all right on that? Cast your votes, please. Thank you. I am very sleep deprived, and I apologize to this body.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Mr. Pearson? Yes. That motion carries with Mr. Coleman voting no.
Motion to adjourn, we don't need a motion. We're going to take a recessed
Yes, ma'am.
until Miss,
Yeah.
all right, so I'm going to ask the clerk, is it possible to bring lunch in since we're clearly not going to get lunch?
From where? At this time? How long?
I don't know how to feed these people and stay on schedule. Anybody sound good? Got an idea there?
What time will the food truck?
It's,
Why don't we make a motion to reconvene at 2 o'clock?
Do we have,
so you can get the minutes, so we can,
Right, and
okay.
I said before your 1:30 meeting.
Yeah.
But he's saying go past the 1:30 meeting hours.
Well, we got about 20 minutes to wolf lunch down and find lunch and all that. That's why I'm asking.
There's no time for lunch.
There's no time for lunch otherwise.
unless the food truck.
Is the food truck out there? Okay. All right, it has to stay recessed till 1:25. Defer to Madam Clerk, please, to debrief us, and we'll get on with our meetings then.
Madam Chair, if it would, I understand that we're having a little bit of technical issues on getting minutes. So what we would request is that you just have the, I think it was in the old business, the approval of minutes, if that could roll to next week. I believe that the clerk would be able to distribute electronically minutes, and then we could take up approval of that next hour. So with that being, if that would be the will of the body, we could just do that basically by affirmation, and then we could conclude this meeting.
Okay?
We just do it without objection.
Without objection.
Okay, we're going to approve them and just,
No,
No,
you're
ma'am.
not
No,
going to
ma'am.
approve them. I'm
We're
going to
going
send
to-
them to you.
okay, very good.
For your review.
All right, I think everybody. Hearing no objection. Hearing no objection, proceed, please.
And then we would just, you would need to entertain a motion to
To adjourn.
Motion to
adjourn. Yes, ma'am.
Who, Madam
All
Chair?
right, so Mr. Powell made it, Mr. Coleman seconded. Fouché, Mr. Fouché. Okay, he thirded it. All right, thank you. Let's move upstairs, kids, and we'll crank out this next meeting.